Well, good morning, Barrett.
Hey Chris, how's it going?
Really good. It's an amazingly beautiful day that is starting to unfold here after a week of storms and all sorts of natural chaos that we've been surrounded by. So it is,
Yes.
it's a nice advance now toward the grand finale of spring and the unfolding of summer.
Our unsteady world does give us some real moments of beauty. So I guess that's our goal is to really enjoy the beauty when it's here and to find the peacefulness in those times where something else is showing up for us. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It is interesting how, it's never the same, but it's always the same, which is the paradox of this material realm that we inhabit right now. We have all of these magical things to distract us from actually sitting down and spending some time in quiet solitude and allowing that presence to enfold us. So we've always got something that needs to be fixed.
yeah,
And
that's been a
that
big
in
part of my path recently too, is this recommitting to that inner space. Um, I found that over time, sometimes I kind of just wander off the path a little bit. I'm a little less dedicated with finding that time with God. But it's really been calling to me pretty strong lately, and I find that when I'm in that space, um, I'm just really feeling fed. I'm feeling like, okay, this is really what I needed. So I think that is a reminder for me. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
Absolutely, yes. I think it's an ongoing issue for all of us, but one of the things that starts to occur as we move more deeply into that space of being able to establish that connection or to let that connection be established on our behalf. Because when we try to rush into it with our ego and say, okay, God, I'm here, that frequently snafus the entire journey. But when we can get to that point of surrender to allow the presence to reveal itself to us, we start to enter into a realm that is really completely disconnected to um, the world that we inhabit on a day to day basis. Because that whole idea of breadth and depth and things that are finite and objects begin to fade from our awareness, and we begin to immerse ourselves in an experience that is so incredibly vast that it is beyond comprehension in this realm. And I think that's what I really love about developing, that relationship and cultivating that presence is that everything that we are exposed to in this realm has a boundary and has a limitation. And when we step away from all of those limitations, a truly amazing world opens itself up to us. And when we have a taste of that world, it helps us gain assurance that we can, that we can trust what we are experiencing and we can trust that presence that is operating on our behalf. And that kind of segues into the idea of patience, because a lot of times we are trying to get something to occur in our life, and because we don't have that assurance, we run out of patience and abandon whatever it is we're trying to make manifest halfway through the process of manifestation. So, really, arriving at a point of absolute assurance and absolute knowingness that whatever it is that we are seeking, whether it be a healing or a blessing or some type of redemptive experience, we have to be absolutely in a state of conviction that it is going to occur.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the deepest conviction that we can have is really about our awakening into God. I think as we start to get on the spiritual path, there's this thought sometimes of like, oh, it's going to take forever for me to let go of all of my grievances, or I know other people can do this, but I don't think I'm going to, or my burden is too heavy, or I don't have the capability. Um, I think sometimes we kind of leave ourselves out of that equation, but if there's one thing that we get as a guarantee as we start to learn about this thought system, it's that it is certain that we will all come to know the peace of God. And the reason that that's true is because we already are the peace of God. We just don't have that awareness yet. So the peace of God is infinite. It is throughout all time and space. It is everywhere. There's nowhere where the peace of God is not. It's beyond time and space. It's beyond these boundaries that you were talking about. And the only thing that prevents us from knowing this is our decision not to. Now, a lot of people, when they hear that, they kind of like, no, come on, I really want the peace of God. Well, if you really wanted the peace of God 100% without any reservation, it would be your experience right now. And I think that that helps us to know as well, like, okay, it gives us sort of a measuring stick. So if my experience is not one of perfect peace and joy, well, then there's something in me that wants that experience. There's something in me that wants something that's the opposite of that perfect peace. And by seeing that clearly, we start to get a grip on how deep our attachment to the individual self is. Because we are desperately clinging to this idea of being an individual. And it is the main issue that prevents us from knowing the oneness. So as we start to see how strong we're holding on to that, it sort of gives us an appreciation for this idea of patience, that we just need to really be patient with ourselves as we keep learning. We need to be patient with the process because the outcome is certain. And I think those ideas combine to really reassure us as we keep going. That even if we're kind of treading in this world of maybe some sadness or some sorrow, that is just a temporary thing. No matter how heavy or sad something feels, it will pass. And I think remembering that this too shall pass is really a way for us to know that we're going where we need to go. And we will find this deeper peace that never left us, but maybe has left our awareness.
Exactly. And within that, one of the things that causes us to flip-flop and abandon our commitment periodically is the that sense of needs that have to be fulfilled. And we tend to identify abundance or enrichment with objects or with having funds to pay bills and that sort of thing. And in reality, when we slide into that association with the divine, we recognize an abundance of self, the divine self, the presence and activity of God within the limited image we have of who we are. And with that expansion, there is a lessening of problems and eventually, dissolving of all the problems in our lives that cause us to vector off and to go in the wrong direction at the wrong time. So the more you practice that presence, the more you feel that state of abundant consciousness. and you don't have to set out to manifest specific things. Oh, I need a new this, or I need money for that. And that's one of the distractions that keeps us from actually experiencing that vastness of the divinity that resides within us. And it is within that vast realm of totality, everything that we could imagine or desire or need has already been given to us before we had the recognition of the desire or need. So rather than play the game like a lot of people do, which is to, identify specific things and then try to bring them into manifestation, it's much easier to reside in that state of being at one with universal consciousness and seeing the abundance come forth exactly like lily pads leading you across the pond. Every need is filled, and those needs, you don't even expect them to arise, but by having that patience and that sense of assuredness, everything that comes up can be dealt with effortlessly. And I think that's one of the things that is a byproduct of the spiritual journey. If you're going into your spirituality looking for, material items and material needs to be filled, you're really creating a gap between you and the divine. So you have to abandon that need to manifest things specifically and live in a state of patient trust and knowingness, and then everything will come forth exactly when it is needed. And of course, that's a way that we harness the ego, because the ego is gluttonous, the ego is demanding, and the ego is always aspiring to become the master of all space and time. And we need to step back from that and realize that the real master of all space and time is that which we dwell within. It is not that which we are separate and apart with or of.
Yeah, yeah. So much of what you're saying just reminds me of the earlier characteristic of the teachers of God we talked about a few weeks ago, which was trust. And how, I think it even said something about how trust is the characteristic that the other characteristics rest upon. So when we have that sense of trust, we can be patient. When we have that trust, that sense of trust, we can be assured that, as you're saying, even if we don't see exactly what the path ahead of us is, that those lily pads will kind of spring out of the pond just as we need them. That's a really beautiful metaphor, and I've always really loved those lily pads. They're so peaceful, and I like the image of kind of stepping across them. I don't think they'd really support my weight, but it might be kind of wet. But the image is pretty cool.
Well, you just leave your body behind, and then there's no issue at all, which is really kind of what the Course is all about to begin with.
Yeah. Well, I like that idea of leaving the body behind. We're so attached to this body as our identity, and it's not easy. I mean, we've given ourselves this experience that seems fragile. It seems prone to illness, prone to disease, and prone to injury. It's very vulnerable and frail. And when we think that this is what we are, then we can't help but think that we are those characteristics. And I think that's another thing that Jesus is doing in the Course, is he's showing us that that's not really who we are. That the truth of who we are is invulnerable, it's immortal, it's eternal, it's perfectly loving and loved. There is no separation from anyone or anything. There's no need to feel like we need something that we don't have. because how could everything not already have everything? So these ideas really do build upon themselves, and I think they support us in our journey. When we start to get that only what is eternal is real, then it starts to help us see that these things in time that we've been so attached to, and that sometimes go the way we want them to, and sometimes they go another way. Um, we can say, "Oh, right, since that isn't really eternal, it's not actually true." And when we can say those kinds of things, we start to reinforce and deepen this awareness in ourselves. We start to say, right, that thing that I thought was so important, that was essential to my happiness, was really just a red herring. And I'm going to choose to not continue to pursue that. Even, or maybe I'm going to keep taking the actions around moving in that direction, but without the psychological attachment to what will happen. And I think that way of being in the world, it just gives us the sense of freedom that we're really looking for. And I think it's our desire for all of us, no matter who we are, even if we don't always have the words to put to it, because it's a reflection of that deeper truth that's longing to just come forward and be known.
Exactly. And one of the things that I always go back to and look at in the situation around the idea of needs and desires is that all of the needs and desires of this material realm have a fear factor underneath them. And that really is what we are, even in our most deluded state of aspiration. That's what we're really responding to, is an unrecognized or an unspoken fear that is motivating us to get this material object or to get this physical process to occur. And yet, really, how many times have you been in a crisis and didn't have the items or the tools to work with that you thought you needed? And look what happened. You survived it anyway. Things merely became different. They didn't become, horrible or hideous. But that fear factor that we attach to all of our desires is what causes us to stampede and to lose our patience and to lose our focus and our sense of direction. And then it all just spirals out of control over and over again. So, Barrett, what is coming up in your quarter of the universe over the next few weeks? Anything exciting?
Well, as we've been talking about, looking to head out to see Gary Renard in Iowa. He's coming into the Midwest a week from Saturday, so that should be fun. And yeah, just enjoying the summer. Like you said, the weather out there is gorgeous, so hopefully I'm going to get out there and get to soak some of that sun up. How about you?
Well, yes, there is definitely the possibility of experiencing a day with Gary, which would be great. I know that you've had a lot of contact with him, and I had a great interview with him 4 or 5 years ago. So, and there are going to be multiple other opportunities for people to get out and experience different events based around the course, some that you and I are going to try and make come into being, and there are other things too. So if you can go out and share the course with a group of people, that makes it much more tangible. Sharing the ideas, sharing the thoughts, and sharing the love is what makes it very visceral for you and is a source of tremendous inspiration. So I guess I'll see you in another week.
Yeah, you bet, Chris. And it's been fun sharing the love with you here today, and I'll talk to you later.
Have a great day. Bye.